Hey guys, hope you're all doing really well. Look, I just wanted to run through a bit of a market outlook just to show you exactly sort of how I've drawn my charts up at the moment for today and see how that transpires for the rest of the week as well. I constantly update the charts based on whether price is creating higher highs or higher lows, or lower highs and lower lows. And after that formation is made, I then draw my level of interest and I set my alerts and I walk away, which is exactly what Trades by Sai does, who has made the ICC, or who created ICC and made it popular. So just before I run through what I've drawn up so far, I always run through the strategy. So for those that are familiar with the strategy, feel free to skip this section. I'm not sure how to exactly chapter each section yet. I'm still quite new to YouTube and figuring that out. So eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to figure that out and you'll be able to skip this section. But for those that are new and want to have an understanding of what ICC is, I run through the strategy every time on these videos because I've heard that it's really, really helpful for those that just need a reminder and or people that are just learning. So I'll run through the strategy. So ICC it stands for indication, correction, and continuation. It's a trend-based strategy. What does that mean? So if it's a trend-based strategy, that means the market needs to be in an uptrend, which consists of higher highs and higher lows, or it needs to be in a downtrend consisting of lower lows and lower highs. So the first thing that we do is that we jump onto our 4 hour and our 1 hour time frames to find these formations. So if we're looking at an uptrend in particular, either on the 4 hour or the 1 hour, and ideally we want them to coincide. So if the 4 hour is in an uptrend, we want the 1 hour to be in an uptrend, and vice versa. So if we're looking at an uptrend, we're looking for a low, a high. Price then creates a higher low, creating a higher high. Once that higher high has created, that's our first phase, which is the indication phase. So what we can do at this point in time is we can draw our level of interest at that previous high, and then we wait for the second phase to play out, which is the correction phase. So we wait for price to break below that level of interest and that previous high, and we don't want it to break below the previous high or low, because if it does that, that could potentially mean that we might be in a downtrend, or it could create another indication. So when price creates another high or low, we when price comes back below this level of interest, creating the correction phase, we then scale down to the 15-minute and 5-minute time frames to find the characteristics that support the overall trend. So when we're jumping down to the 5 and 15-minute time frame, we're looking for very similar characteristics. So we want to see higher highs and higher lows, but on that smaller time frame, on the 5-minute and the 15-minute time frame. So then once we see that formation, we then wait for price to break above that level of interest, and that's when we take our entry. And this is going to be for the third and final phase, which is the continuation phase. So our entry is at that level of interest with overall targets at that higher high. Me, preferably, I like to take profits at the halfway point and the overall higher high as well. I found that that's just worked really well for me. Seen some pretty consistent profits there, which has been nice. So that's an uptrend. Now a downtrend is just the complete reverse. So running through this quite quickly, we start with a high, then a low, creating a lower high, then a lower low. So once we create that lower low, we've got our first phase, which is the indication phase. So at this point in time, we can draw our level of interest at that previous low. So again, guys, remember when I'm drawing this out, it's the 4 hour and 1 hour time frame. So we've got our indication. Now we're waiting for the correction. Correction happens, breaks above that level of interest, creating another lower high. So similarly, how we did in the uptrend, or what we did in the uptrend, is once the correction is complete, we can scale down to the 15-minute and 5-minute time frames to find the characteristics that support the overall trend. So it breaks above here, doesn't break this lower high, and now it's starting on the 5-minute and 15-minute time frame. It's creating lower lows and lower highs, or some sort of formation, or equal highs, or that sort of thing. So then when price breaks below this level of interest after creating those characteristics, we then take an entry, which is the third and final phase, like the uptrend. We take profit, ultimate take profits at that lower low, and also I preferably like to take a profit at the halfway point for that continuation phase to play out, with stops below here. And again, similarly to the uptrend, stops go below that previous higher low, or above that previous lower high. Excuse me. And that's as simple as it is. So with that in mind, let's put this into practice. So let's actually start on gold. Gold has just absolutely taken off. So I don't know, we've definitely got some form of indication here. So the 4 hour, we can see that there's, it's not as clear, but if we then go down to the 60-minute time frame, you can either draw your level of interest at the body of the candle or the top here. In this instance, I'm actually going to try for the wick. But if you want to place your level of interest here, that's perfectly fine as well. So essentially what I can see here is, I'll just get this tool. We've got a low, a high, a higher low, which has now created a higher high. Price has actually pulled back below here and now creating another higher high. So we actually have somewhat of another mini indication here. So we could sort of say, well, there's an indication here, right? There's the higher high here, which is that indication. You could say price is now breaking below before breaking up. I'm not sold on that completely, so I'm actually just going to wait for price to hopefully retrace. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. And you can see here that I've got an alert set here, which is at 4526.8. So that's sort of what I'm waiting for on this one. And that's just gold. So if we now look at NASDAQ, this might potentially produce something. So if we start on the 4 hour time frame, we can see, based on the wicks, I'll just move this out of the way for the moment. So we can see there's a high, there's a low, there's a higher high, and price is now actually creating a higher low. So ideally, if price breaks above this level here, I'll just draw that on just for the moment and just sort of show my thinking. So I usually draw everything on the body of the candle, but in this instance, this wick does probably look a little bit better. It just makes a little bit more sense to me. So I've actually drawn it based on that. Actually, I think I drew it based on, yeah, that's fine. It's somewhere basically where we know very clearly that above this level, this is where buyers are in control. So if we then scale down to the 15-minute time frame, and I'll just remove this, this is the sort of formation I'm looking for. So ideally, we can see that if you also want to check out the value area levels that I draw on my charts just to get a little bit of context, you can do that. It's a little bit difficult to see on this chart. If I go to the darker formation, you can actually see these levels marked out. But yeah, go check out my volume profile level video if you want to know how to draw these levels and get a little bit more of an understanding from it. I got the idea from a YouTuber by the name of Cami Capital. He trades primarily just off these levels. But I sort of use it in conjunction with ICC. ICC is first, and these are sort of just complementary levels, I guess, if you want to call it that. So you can see price is at a discount here, which is the value area low. It bounced off previous week's point of control, and now it potentially might break above here. But ultimately what I'm looking for, I'll just go back to the lighter time frame, just so you can, the lighter chart, so you can sort of see. Because at the moment, I'm basically just waiting for characteristics of an uptrend. So we know that this is a higher high that's been created on the higher time frame. Price has had a correction, and now potentially, if price can actually break above this level, we may see some bullish behavior here. So ideally what I'd like to see is I'd like to see price break above here, pull back, then continue to make higher highs and higher lows, or some sort of formation like that, before then breaking above this level here, at which point what I'll do is I will set a trade on, and I'd put my stop loss below the swing low, and I would take profits at that higher high point that we addressed on the higher time frame. So that's sort of what I'm looking for, but you know, very well price could actually just continue in this downtrend formation as it has here. It's very strong here. So let's have a look and see what we would like sort of to happen if it were to break further lower. So if we're just basing it on the hourly time frame, we can see that this is the ultimate push that moved this market up here. So ideally what I'd like to see is I'd like to see price break below this level. So if we were to hypothetically draw that out and see what that might look like, we'd want price to sort of do something like this. So we want price to break below this level here, creating an indication for then price to come back, creating a lower high, to then break below this level again. So something like this. Something like this. So we've got that lower low, lower high, lower low, creating that indication. So we could say, okay, well, our level of interest is actually going to be somewhere around here, which is based on this level here. So template 4 hour, 1 hour sell. So that's the indication. This would be the correction. This would be the continuation. That's sort of what I want to see for sells. So if we look at that, just based on the drawing, we've got that high, low, lower high, lower low, creating that indication. Price creates that lower high, draw our level of interest for that continuation phase to play out. So that's sort of what we would look for. Obviously, this is all hypothetical, but it's good to just, I guess, have an understanding. If price is breaking these levels, then you know, you could actually probably very well might set an alert here, because if that's the case and it is breaking lower, then that's what I'll do. So it's very simple. You'll see a little plus sign here. So you want to mark that up just based on the crosshair there. So I've got it marked up here, and you just want to add an alert. So if price breaks below here, then that means, well, we could be creating an indication, creating that correction, and potentially another continuation. And it might not happen tonight, might not happen tomorrow. This price could very well just consolidate for the longest time and actually not do anything. So we're just going to wait. So I'm setting my alerts and I'm walking away. That's all I'm doing at this point in time. I'm getting really disciplined at doing that. And, you know, as said, I generally do trade the London session, but I am trying to open myself up to trading the New York session, because that is the ultimate session to trade. It is the highest volume session. It's 9:30 New York time, and the time zone for that is UTC -5. So, you know, ideally you just want to be trading around that time, but you still can get some trades in the London session, because the London session still is a very high session for volume, but obviously not as high as New York. But sometimes they can switch, but for the most part, New York's the way to go. So that's sort of what I'm looking for at this point in time. I've got my alert set. I've got an alert set for gold. So if price comes back below this level, I'll probably look to take a trade once price starts correcting and then continuing. But it looks like gold's quite strong here. It's at all-time highs at this point in time as well. So I would not be surprised if price actually gets up to that 5,000 level, to be honest. It's seems that's where it's gunning for. And we've seen price action like this before, where it just absolutely takes off and actually doesn't provide any sort of pullbacks or corrections at all. So if that's what happens, that's what happens. I can't control the market. I can only react at when it gets to my levels of interest, and that's all I can do, and I'm fine with it. So I'll leave it there, guys. But if you had any questions or want me to run through anything in particular, if you've got any questions at all about anything, I'll do my very best to try and help answer those. But if you did like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, please do hit that subscribe button. That'd be very helpful. Thanks so much for your time, guys. I'll check in with you very soon if anything does eventuate, or I'll potentially just keep you updated with the levels if that's helpful for you as well. All right, thanks, guys. Take care.